Lieutenant Governor Perdue.
Last but not least, I have a record of support for the HBUs across the state. I have been on all those campuses many, many times, have met with the chancellors, met with the boards of advisors and trustees and their students, and my footprints are there. The pharmacy school at Elizabeth City State, the biotech center right here at Central, the science lab I helped do when I was in the Senate on Winston-Salem State's campus, and I'm so proud of the education graduate program coming out of A&T. So the HBUs are part and parcel of the legacy and the educational future of North Carolina, and the private schools are equally important. So as your next governor, I won't just talk about walking the walk, I'll continue to do the work that I've been doing for the last 20 years, trying to lift them up, elevate them, make sure that their capacity to train 21st century workers is as golden as any school in the world, not just in North Carolina. And let me put a plug in for Bennett. Now, y'all love my Bennett Bells. A lot of folks have had me on that campus. There's a future governor or a future president there, and we've got to support our private African-American institutions across the state, too.
Okay, thank you. And that concludes round one. We begin round two. In this round, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer the question. The subsequent candidate will also have 90 seconds to answer the same question. This question goes to Treasurer Moore. African Americans in North Carolina spent $40 billion of the $44 billion they earned on goods, services, and taxes to white-owned businesses. 10 out of every $11 that blacks spent left the black community. Question: what do you say to those who believe this leakage is a direct result of the assaults on black entrepreneurs that began in the 1890s and continued through most of the 20th century? And as governor, what will you do to help black businesses develop so they can capture a substantial portion of that $40 billion?
Well, first of all, let me say I don't think there's any doubt that there were injustices done that need to be redressed in our legal system. I think most North Carolinians have no idea that the only duly elected government that has been overthrown by force in the entire history of this nation was in Wilmington, North Carolina, a little over 100 years ago. And there were wrongs done there that need to be righted, and I look forward to having the opportunity to right them. Now, as we move forward, there's a lot we can do, and one of the things that I think is important in leadership is doing by example. When I became state treasurer 7 years ago, we hadn't done much business in investing the state's money in the minority community. We had less than $150 million out of the pension funds of the state. We've increased that 1,000-fold. We've got more than almost $3.5 billion under management now, and with great firms, some of them right here in Durham, North Carolina, all over the country. We can do more. We should do more. The main reason to do it, though, is North Carolina's dollars should reflect in the way they're spent, the way they're invested, in North Carolina's overall makeup. If we do that, we're a stronger state and a better state. It's something that I've been committed to, and I look forward to continuing to push in that arena.
Justice Orr.
First of all, there's no question the white supremacy campaign of 1900 did everything it could to eliminate opportunities for black citizens of this state and others. Now, what can we do for the entrepreneur class within the black community and for all our citizens? Because this is a major concern. The economic development policy of this state is to give hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to the largest corporations, many of them internationally or foreign owned, and to shift the tax burden to small businesses and do precious little to support the real group of businessmen and women that are the backbone of North Carolina's economy. We've got to change that economic development policy, of which all of the other candidates have at least been tacitly, if not directly, supportive. Now, I was up at Western Carolina, a long way from here, but they've got a center on entrepreneurship, and there was a great quote. I used it the other night in the WRAL debate. They said, sure, we can train people to fill jobs, but what we want to do is to train people to create jobs. And we've got to take that concept and the great program they've got up there and move it all over the state, particularly in rural eastern North Carolina, where we all know our communities are struggling in a lot of ways. And I'm convinced that if we focus our dollars and efforts on small business and entrepreneurs instead of multi-billion-dollar corporations, we'll all be better in the long run.
Lieutenant Governor Perdue?
Well, the Wilmington race riot period in our history was awful. It was a blot on North Carolina, but I can't not mention the fact that I think the sterilization of all those women without their permission is one of the most heinous things I've heard of in all of the world. It makes my blood boil as a woman, and those women should be paid back and should be paid back. Some of them are still alive. Minority contracting is a real issue in this state. I believe that most of us understand that the state is made up of small business owners, not big, huge businesses, and we need to do all we can do to help those folks get successful contracts, both with the government and in the private sector. And that has to be under the leadership of the next governor of North Carolina. You may have seen my proposal this week on open government. It's called Google Government, so that any contract made available by the state of North Carolina would be on your computer, so you could go there and figure out what it is you could compete for and bid for and how you get those contracts. And then even better yet, you can find out who those contracts were awarded to. So there would be some final parity in the playing field in our state's business, and that would serve as a carrot, I believe, to force the private sector to do more with minority contracts. We've got some great examples, you all, across this state of minority businesses that are super because they have stepped out and taken a risk. In the 21st century, it's all about innovation and entrepreneurship. It's about thinking differently. It's about believing that any of us can own a successful business if we can find the liquidity to get the idea off the ground. That's how you build a new North Carolina.
Colonel?
I agree with Judge Orr about the large corporations. I think that's a very good point, so I won't belabor that. 778,000 small businesses in this state. Many of you probably work for one of those. We need to help them more. We need to do more things for them. We can give them tax relief. But you see, the current structure in our state does not give them tax relief, but taxes them more. And over again, they have to pay more taxes for certain things. Talk about health care. Let's give them a tax credit on their corporate tax when they file their tax return. That'll solve part of the health care problem. If you work for a small business, do you have health care? You probably don't. But if we give them a tax break, you probably would. Let's support our small businesses. They're the lifeblood of our community. I have a lady who I go and have breakfast in the morning at her little cafe. And she tells me, you know, I have to collect the sales tax for the state. But the state doesn't pay me to collect the tax. I have to have an accountant do that. Why don't we turn 0.25% of that sales tax back to her? Put this money back into the community. Politicians believe that when the money comes back to the people, it's gone, and that's wrong. When the money comes back to the people, it turns over in your community 7 times. That $1 turns over 7 times to give you sales tax of about 49 cents. So put the money back, give it to people, give it to small businesses, and they will take care of a lot of the problems we have. And minority businesses have to be at the top of this category. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Justice Orr, you'll start us off on this question. Black infants die at twice the rate of white infants in North Carolina. The AIDS infection rate for blacks is 10 times the rate for whites. Over 1.3 million people in our state, including 400,000 children, cannot afford health insurance. Question, what will you do as governor to close these racial gaps in preventative health care and make sure no one is denied health care because of money?